Princess Erevel stood by the observation deck window of the starship Luminara, her eyes tracing the endless stretch of violet nebulae that shimmered like a dream. The stars outside were familiar, yet each system held secrets that made exploration exciting. Yet, today, her mind wandered not to the cosmos, but to Kale, the young apprentice assigned to the engineering deck. To the princess, Kale seemed ordinary. He was quiet, polite, and always busy with tools or repairing minor equipment. He moved with precision, yet no one would guess that he possessed anything unusual. He never raised his voice, never challenged orders, and seemed content to remain in the background. To Erevel, he was simply a helpful apprentice, capable, but nothing more. Kale had joined the ship 6 months ago, yet he had never caused a stir. The crew, too, barely noticed him except when repairs were needed. He could fix almost anything: worn circuits, damaged energy cores, or the delicate bioscanners used for alien species. His hands worked with a natural grace, as if he understood machines better than any manual could teach. Yet, there were moments tiny, almost invisible, that hinted Kale was more than an ordinary human. The first moment Erevel noticed something unusual was during a routine check of the communications array. The array had been malfunctioning for days, causing intermittent signal losses across nearby sectors. Kale had been called in to assist the engineers. Erevel watched from the deck above as Kale crouched before the humming device. His fingers moved over the control panels, pressing sequences so fast that the engineers barely followed. Within minutes, the device stabilized, and the lights on the control board returned to a steady green, fixed again. One of the senior engineers muttered, clearly impressed. "How does he do it?" Kale merely shrugged, smiling faintly. "Just following the instructions." Erevel raised an eyebrow. "Instructions? You solved that in half the time everyone else needed." Kale's smile remained. "Sometimes the machines just talk back if you listen carefully." The princess tilted her head, unsure what to make of that. Machines talking back? That was poetic, perhaps, but impossible. Yet the ease with which Kale worked left a strange impression. Days passed, and Erevel observed Kale quietly. She noticed how animals on the ship's biodome responded differently to him. The small luminescent creatures used for oxygen recycling would gather near him, almost as if drawn to him. The larger creatures, the ones that normally ignored humans, sometimes paused. When Kale entered the biodome, staring for a moment before resuming their activities, Erevel's curiosity grew. Kale remained unassuming, never boasting, never explaining. Yet there was something in the way life forms reacted to him, something almost commanding, though he never demanded attention. The ship received a new assignment, a mapping mission to the edge of an uncharted star system. Known as the Silverous Belt, it was dangerous work. Nebulae storms, magnetic anomalies, and strange gravitational shifts made travel difficult. Most explorers avoided it. Yet, the Starborn Court considered it important to chart, and Princess Erevel insisted on leading the mission herself. Kale was assigned to her team. She noted the reactions of the crew. Some exchanged whispers when he joined the bridge crew, a subtle tension in their eyes. Erevel ignored it. They were humans, after all, new to the galactic stage, and unaccustomed to the strange subtleties of other species. The journey into the Silverous Belt was quiet at first. The stars stretched endlessly, the nebulae shifting in hues of purple, pink, and silver. The ship's hull shimmered under the reflected light, creating a feeling that they were floating inside a dream. Erevel watched Kale as he moved between consoles, adjusting the navigational arrays and monitoring the environmental shields. He did not speak often, but when he did, his words were precise, calm, and thoughtful. Crew members started seeking his opinion on small matters: engine efficiency, sensor calibration, even food storage routines. By the third day, Erevel noticed something stranger. A scout drone sent to probe a nearby asteroid field returned with unusual readings. Massive life forms, creatures of such size and energy that they were classified as apex predators, were moving within the field. The sensors couldn't fully scan them, but their presence alone was enough to trigger warnings. The engineering team prepared the ship for potential encounters, reinforcing shields and reviewing emergency protocols. Yet, As Kale approached the controls, the warnings quietly disappeared. The massive readings shrank on the monitor. The predators seemed to have stepped back. Ervil stared at him. "Did you do that?" Kale shook his head. "I just recalibrated the sensors. I didn't touch the creatures themselves. But the readings, they must have moved away on their own. Perhaps they sensed the ship differently this time. It sounded impossible." Apex predators, creatures that had survived countless generations, retreating without threat. Yet Ervil could not deny the evidence. She looked at Kale and realized there was a calm certainty in his presence that seemed to ripple outward, touching even the most dangerous of beings. The princess kept her observations to herself. If the crew noticed her staring at Kale, she didn't acknowledge it. She wasn't ready to confront the impossible. That evening, she found Kale in the ship's garden dome, tending to the plants and small creatures. The soft light of the artificial sun highlighted his focused expression. He moved carefully, yet confidently, speaking to the creatures in soft, simple tones. They responded almost immediately, crawling closer, chirping softly, and brushing against his hands. Ervil approached quietly. "You have a way with them." Kale looked up, a faint smile touching his lips. "They're not so different from humans," he said simply. "They respond to calm, to care, to attention." The princess considered this. "But the predators in the asteroid field, they retreated when you entered the room." Kale's gaze softened. "Sometimes, beings respond to more than just action. Presence matters. I don't control them, I simply exist in a way they respect." Ervil frowned. "Respect? Could humans, so young and underestimated, truly command that?" She wanted to question him more, but Kale returned to his work, leaving her alone with her thoughts. That night, Ervil lay in her cabin, staring at the ceiling panels that simulated the endless galaxy. Kale's presence lingered in her mind. He was an apprentice, simple, quiet, seemingly ordinary. Yet somehow, the universe reacted differently around him. Even the apex predators, creatures that had survived eons without fear, seemed to yield to him. Her curiosity grew into fascination. Who was Kale, really? And why did the galaxy itself seem to recognize him? Ervil drifted to sleep with questions that had no answers. Outside, the nebulae shimmered, the stars silent witnesses to a young apprentice whose ordinary appearance masked something extraordinary. Tomorrow, the Silver's belt would reveal more secrets. And Ervil had a growing sense that Kale would be at the center of them all, quietly shaping events that no one yet understood. For the first time in her life, the princess realized that sometimes the quietest presence could hold the most power. The Luminara drifted deeper into the Silver's belt, a place where stars seemed dimmer and the nebulae shifted in ghostly waves. Princess Ervil stood again on the observation deck, her hands resting lightly on the railing. She had spent hours thinking about Kale and the strange incident with the apex predators. Something about him unsettled her, not because he was dangerous, but because the universe seemed to react differently to him. The ship's AI hummed softly, alerting the crew to a new set of readings. Massive creatures, some larger than the ship itself, were moving in the nearby asteroid belts. The sensors flagged them as apex predators, creatures at the top of their respective ecosystems. Normally, the crew would panic, taking extreme measures to avoid contact. But today was different. Kale was at the console, adjusting the navigation systems with his usual calm precision. When he touched the controls, the AI seemed to respond to him in subtle ways, shifting the readings without anyone instructing it. And when the scanners focused on the creatures, something extraordinary happened. The predators, enormous beings with energy fields that could disrupt the ship's shields, were retreating. Not because of any weapon, not because of the ship, but simply moving away. The sensors showed them changing direction the moment Kale entered the room. "Impossible," muttered Commander Valen, the ship's chief officer. "There's no logical reason they'd change course. We're not threatening them in any way." Kale didn't answer immediately. He continued to adjust the sensors, his fingers moving over the console with quiet confidence. "Perhaps they sense something they respect," he said finally. As if it were the most natural explanation, the crew exchanged uneasy glances. Apex predators did not respect anyone or anything. They survived by instinct, by raw power, and by the ability to dominate their environments. Yet here, in the uncharted expanse of the Silverous Belt, they yielded. Princess Erevel stepped closer to Kale, curiosity shining in her eyes. "Do you understand them?" she asked. Kale looked at her, calm as ever. "I don't speak their language. I don't command them. But presence matters, Princess. Even creatures that rely on instinct can sense a difference. They recognize strength, and sometimes restraint." Erevel frowned. "Strength? You're just an apprentice." Kale smiled faintly. "Maybe, but strength is not always obvious." The Luminara continued its journey, weaving between asteroid fields and through swirling nebulae. The crew remained on high alert, though no one dared question Kale openly. The apex predators continued to avoid the ship, creating a strange calm in an otherwise dangerous system. Over the next few days, the crew began to notice patterns. Every time Kale moved through a dangerous area, the predators retreated. The closer he got, the more space they gave him. It was as if he carried an invisible shield, not of force, but of influence. One evening, Erevel found Kale alone in the navigation room, staring at the holographic star maps. He was tracing paths through the asteroid belts, marking safe zones and predicting where the predators might move next. "You're mapping their behavior?" she asked, amazed. Kale nodded. "Patterns are everywhere. They have routines, instincts, preferred paths. If we study them carefully, we can move through without conflict." Erevel leaned on the console beside him. "Why do they listen to you? Why does the system change when you're around?" Kale hesitated, then said, "I don't control them. I only exist in a way they can understand. That's all." Erevel wanted to ask more, but Kale's calm demeanor made her hesitate. She realized that pressing him might not yield answers. Some truths reveal themselves only with observation, patience, and time. The next day, the Luminara encountered another anomaly, a massive energy field stretching across several light years. The sensors showed violent currents and unstable gravitational pockets conditions that could tear apart a starship in minutes. "Normally, we turn back," Commander Valen said. "No crew has ever survived these conditions without losing at least half the ship." Kale stepped forward, examining the holographic readouts. He moved his hands over the display, adjusting the ship's shields and trajectory. "If we follow the natural currents instead of resisting them, we can move through safely," he said. The crew watched in amazement as Kel's calculations guided the ship. Shields shimmered, engines adjusted, and slowly, the Luminara glided through the energy field like a leaf on a stream. No alarms, no collisions, no damage. Princess Erevel felt a mixture of awe and disbelief. "You did that." Effortlessly, Kale shrugged. "I didn't do it alone. The ship, the currents, even the creatures around us, they all have rules. You just have to pay attention." By the time they cleared the field, the crew had begun to change their perception of Kale. He was no longer just an apprentice. His presence, knowledge, and calm demeanor seemed to guide them through danger with an almost natural authority. That night, Erevel walked the corridors of the ship, reflecting on what she had seen. She remembered her first impression of Kale as quiet and unremarkable. Yet now, she realized how wrong she had been. The galaxy itself seemed to respond differently when he was present. In the observation deck, she saw him again, gazing at the stars. She approached quietly. "Kale, do you ever feel different? Like the universe is listening to you?" Kale looked at her, eyes calm. "I feel connected. Everything has its way of moving, of responding. Sometimes, being in tune is enough. That's all." Erevel considered this. Perhaps humanity's greatest strength wasn't in power or technology alone, but in subtle understanding and ability to exist in harmony with the universe rather than against it. The next morning, the Luminara approached the largest asteroid cluster in the belt. This region was home to the most dangerous apex predators recorded in the sector. Their energy signatures were enormous, their movements unpredictable, and their presence enough to unsettle even the most experienced explorers. The crew prepared for a tense encounter. Shields were reinforced, engines were on full alert, and defensive protocols were engaged. Yet when Kale entered the control room, a strange calm spread across the ship. The predators, once aggressive in their roaming patterns, shifted their paths to avoid the Luminara. They moved back as if an invisible force told them to stand down. Crew members whispered among themselves, watching in disbelief. Princess Erevil realized something profound. Kel's influence was real, subtle but undeniable. Even apex predators, the embodiment of instinct, power, and survival, yielded in his presence. During lunch, Erevil found Kel sitting quietly, eating a simple meal. She joined him, curiosity burning. "Kel, you've been guiding the ship, calming the predators. Do you know why this happens?" He looked at her thoughtfully. "I think it's not about control. It's about balance. Everything, from the smallest creature to the largest predator, responds to balance. They sense it, and perhaps humans. Humans are learning to create it naturally." Erevil considered his words: balance, patience, presence, maybe. These were the qualities that set humans apart in the galaxy, qualities that had not been recognized by other species until now. That evening, as the Luminara sailed silently through the starry expanse, Erevil stood at the observation deck again, watching Kel move through the corridors with calm authority. She understood now that he was no ordinary apprentice. There was something extraordinary about him, something that the galaxy itself seemed to acknowledge. And for the first time, she began to wonder, how many other secrets did humanity hold that even the most ancient beings had yet to discover? The Silverous Belt remained dangerous, filled with unknown creatures and unpredictable phenomena. Yet with Kel by her side, Erevil felt a quiet confidence. The galaxy might underestimate humans, but as they moved deeper into the silent system, it was becoming clear that even the universe itself would take notice. The Luminara had finally reached the edge of the Silverous Belt. The stars beyond the swirling nebulae were brighter here, and the distant worlds shimmered like jewels in the black sky. Princess Erevil stood at the observation deck, her thoughts tangled with curiosity and a quiet unease. Kel had been astonishing at every turn. He had guided them through impossible hazards, calm creatures that should have been dangerous, and somehow made the universe itself seem to move with him. But the most surprising moment was yet to come. A sudden alert interrupted her thoughts. A diplomatic vessel appeared on the sensors, approaching with high speed. Its design was elegant, alien, and unmistakably authoritative. The ship hailed the Luminara, requesting a private audience not with Princess Erevil, but specifically with Kel. Erevil's brow furrowed. With Kel? Why him? He's just an apprentice. The communications officer looked puzzled. It says here the message is addressed to the signal bearer of humanity. Erevil's heart skipped. Signal bearer? She had never heard such a title, not even in the oldest records of human exploration. When the alien vessel docked, Erevil watched as Kel calmly walked onto the bridge. The leaders of several species disembarked, tall, crystalline beings with shifting colors, reptilian diplomats with careful, measured movements, and a species of floating, luminescent creatures whose eyes seemed to pierce through space itself. All of them regarded Kel with a form of respect that made Erevil feel suddenly small. Kel, the crystalline leader began, speaking in careful, translated tones. "We have waited a long time to meet you. Humanity has changed much since your kind entered the galaxy, but your presence carries significance beyond simple understanding. You are one of the signal bearers, are you not?" Kel bowed slightly, his usual calm demeanor intact. "I suppose you could say that. I only try to understand and act as best I can." The alien leaders exchanged glances. Their attention made Erevil realize something extraordinary. Kel was not just another human. He belonged to an ancient lineage, one that had been quietly recognized by the galaxy for centuries. The signal bearers were said to possess a presence that affected life forms, machines, and even energy itself, an influence that required no force, only awareness and understanding. Princess Erevil stepped forward. I don't understand. He's just an apprentice. How can he be part of something so legendary?" Kel glanced at her and smiled faintly. "Appearances can be deceiving, Princess. Strength is not always shown in power or rank. Sometimes it is shown in presence, patience, and understanding." One of the alien diplomats, a floating luminescent being, shimmered brighter. You underestimate your own kind, Princess. Humans have risen quietly, adapting to conditions that many older species cannot. Signal bearers are rare, but they show that humanity is more than it seems. Erevel felt a mixture of pride and awe. She had always believed humans were underestimated in the galaxy, but she never imagined that someone she knew personally could carry such influence. Kale remained calm, almost humble, as if all this attention were expected. The aliens explained further. Long ago, humans had been considered weak, fragile, and insignificant. Other species laughed at their technology, dismissed their colonies, and ignored their potential. Yet humans survived. They adapted. They solved problems that others could not, and they created harmony where chaos reigned. Signal bearers were humans who embodied this adaptability, and quiet strength individuals whose presence affected everything around them. Even the most dangerous predators, Erevel's mind raced. All the strange occurrences during their journey, the predators stepping back, the ship moving effortlessly through hazards. Kale's ability to understand patterns no one else could suddenly made sense. This was not luck. This was heritage. This was power disguised as humility. Kale returned their attention to practical matters. We are here on a mapping mission. My role is simple, to guide the ship and ensure safety. I do not seek influence or recognition. The alien leaders nodded. Your humility is part of your power, the crystalline diplomat said. It is rare among the signal bearers, and it makes your presence stronger. The galaxy will notice humanity more because of you. Erevel watched Kale closely. Despite all this recognition, he remained grounded. There was no arrogance, no desire to dominate, only calm understanding, a quiet confidence that made even the alien leaders listen carefully. Later, in private, Erevel asked Kale, "Did you know about your heritage all along?" Kale shook his head. "I learned some things as I grew, but most of what I discovered was through experience, observation, and guidance from those who came before me. Heritage alone does not make a signal bearer. Understanding does." Erevel considered this. She realized that humanity's potential in the galaxy wasn't only in their technology or courage, but in their ability to think, adapt, and connect. Kale embodied all of these qualities, amplified by something ancient, something recognized even by species far older than humans. The next day, the Luminara moved closer to a planet on the edge of the belt. Sensors indicated a colony of apex predators, creatures thought too dangerous for humans to approach. The alien leaders had provided guidance on their movements, yet the reality of approaching them was intimidating. Kale stepped to the console, placing his hands lightly on the controls. The predators, enormous beings with energy fields that shimmered in the planet's light, shifted away almost immediately. They did not flee in panic, but they made space, giving the ship a safe path. Commander Valen, who had been skeptical since the mission began, muttered in disbelief, "I don't understand. No being has ever reacted this way to a human presence." Kale simply said, "Respect does not require words. Presence is enough." Princess Erevel realized that every challenge they faced was teaching her something new. Not just about Kale, but about humanity. Humans could survive, adapt, and inspire even in a galaxy that underestimated them. And signal bearers were proof of what humans could become: guides, harmonizers, and quiet leaders of the cosmos. That evening, Kale invited Erevel to walk in the ship's garden dome. The plants glowed softly, and small creatures moved freely among the foliage. It was a place of calm, reflection, and observation. "Do you feel it?" Kale asked, his voice gentle. "The way the galaxy responds when you move carefully, with awareness?" Erevel nodded slowly. "I think I do. It's like the universe listens to you. Not because you command it, but because you exist in the right way." Kale smiled faintly. "Exactly. Presence matters more than force. Influence grows quietly, without need for dominance. That is why humans, though underestimated, can thrive in ways older species cannot." Erevel's heart swelled with understanding. Kale was no ordinary apprentice. He carried humanity's potential in ways the galaxy itself recognized. And as they walked in silence, she realized that the Silver's Belt was not only a test of navigation or survival. It was a test of perception, patience, and quiet strength. The next morning, the alien diplomats prepared to depart, leaving the Luminara with words of caution and encouragement. The galaxy watches closely, the crystalline leader said. Humans have grown quietly. Signal bearers like Kale remind older civilizations. That power does not always roar, it often whispers, guides, and inspires. As their ship disappeared into the void, Erevel turned to Kale. I underestimated you. I thought you were just an apprentice. Kale looked at her calmly. Sometimes, appearances are deceiving. Humans often are. But what matters is not what others see, it is what you can do with what you have. Erevel nodded. She finally understood that the quiet, unassuming humans she had thought were ordinary were capable of shaping the galaxy in ways others had never imagined. Kale was living proof. As the Luminara continued deeper into the Silverous Belt, Erevel felt a sense of anticipation. This mission was no longer about mapping uncharted systems or avoiding predators. It was about understanding humanity's place in the galaxy, about discovering the strength that lay in calm presence, careful observation, and quiet wisdom. And Kale, the apprentice she had once underestimated, was the key to unlocking it all. The Luminara glided through the outer reaches of the Silverous Belt, leaving the alien diplomats behind. Princess Erevel walked the corridors, her thoughts heavy with wonder. Kale had revealed more than she had expected. Humanity's potential was quiet but vast, and it thrived in ways older species could not yet understand. Yet the galaxy, as vast as it was, had no patience for hesitation. A new alert flashed on the navigation console. A massive spatial anomaly had appeared, near a cluster of inhabited worlds. Gravity currents twisted unpredictably, energy storms crackled through the void, and communication channels from the colonies were erratic at best. Several neighboring civilizations were on the verge of panic. This is serious, Commander Valen said, scanning the readings. If the anomaly expands, it could destabilize the entire system. Ships, colonies, even the planets themselves are at risk. The alien diplomats had warned them that anomalies like this could devastate sectors, if not handled carefully. Normally, only fleets of highly advanced civilizations could intervene. But Kale studied the readouts calmly, his eyes moving over the holographic projections with a quiet precision that belied the danger. The currents are not random, Kale said, tracing lines across the star map. They follow patterns. If we redirect our approach, we can stabilize the region long enough for cooperation between worlds. Erevel tilted her head. Redirect our approach? How? Kale gestured to the ship's shields and engines. We use the anomaly's energy instead of fighting it. Adjust the shields to harmonize with the currents and guide ships through carefully. It's a delicate balance, but it's possible. The crew exchanged anxious glances. They had never attempted anything like this before. Steering a single ship through the anomaly was one thing. Stabilizing multiple worlds at once was nearly unimaginable. Erevel stepped forward. We'll do it. We have to try. Kale nodded, and the Luminara moved into position. The stars around them shimmered as the energy fields twisted in unpredictable waves. The ship rocked gently, yet Kale remained steady, guiding the navigation systems with confidence. Engage shield harmonizers to 12%, Kale instructed. Adjust propulsion vectors along the current lines and alert nearby vessels. They must follow our lead precisely. The crew obeyed, hands moving over consoles as Kale directed each adjustment with calm authority. Slowly, the Luminara became a beacon, cutting through the anomaly with precision and grace. Other ships, guided by Kale's calculations, followed carefully, moving through currents that could have torn them apart. Princess Erevel watched, her heart pounding. Every maneuver Kale suggested was met with success. Even the anomaly itself seemed to yield to their presence, as if recognizing the careful balance he maintained. Hours passed. Energy storms rippled across the system, threatening colonies and ships alike. Yet Kale's guidance allowed the fleets to navigate safely. His calm presence steadied the crews of multiple species, who began to trust his decisions without question. Commander Valen whispered, I've never seen anything like this. He's leading entire fleets without even trying. The apex predators of the region, long dormant near the planets, reacted strangely to Kel's presence once more. They did not interfere, nor did they flee aggressively. Instead, they shifted subtly, moving aside to avoid the paths the ships required. Their instinctive respect was evident, and it allowed the operation to continue without additional danger. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the currents began to stabilize. The anomaly's energies spread more evenly, and communication channels reopened. Colonies signaled gratitude, and rival factions, once suspicious of each other, began to coordinate under Kel's guidance. Erevel felt a deep sense of awe. Kel had achieved something incredible. He had united different civilizations, prevented a disaster, and done so without authority, intimidation, or force. His approach was simple yet profound: human ingenuity, observation, and calm presence had brought harmony where chaos had threatened. Later, in the ship's garden dome, Erevel walked beside Kel. The soft glow of the plants reflected on his calm expression. "You've done something extraordinary," she said. "You saved worlds and united species that have been rivals for centuries." Kel shook his head. "I only showed them the path. They did the work themselves." Humanity has a way of solving problems by adapting, by noticing what others miss, and by finding balance. Erevel thought of all she had seen in the past weeks: predators yielding, ships navigating impossibilities, and now, civilizations cooperating under his guidance. She realized that the galaxy underestimated humans not because they were weak, but because they were subtle, observant, and clever in ways others had never anticipated. As they walked, one of the alien diplomats returned briefly to the Luminara. The crystalline being's colors shimmered with excitement. "Your species is remarkable," it said. "We had thought humans were primitive, slow to adapt. Yet signal bearers show us the truth. Your kind is clever, patient, and capable of leadership beyond what we imagine." Erevel smiled, pride swelling in her chest. She had never truly understood humanity's quiet power until now. And Kale, the apprentice she had once overlooked, was living proof of that potential. The next day, the Luminara left the edge of the anomaly and returned to calmer regions of the Silverous Belt. Yet news of Kel's guidance spread faster than the ship could travel. Nearby systems sent messages of gratitude. Fleets began asking for cooperation advice, and even rival factions expressed newfound trust in humanity's leadership. Erevel watched Kale as he quietly adjusted the ship's systems. He said little, yet his presence was magnetic. Crew members from every species looked to him for reassurance, guidance, and wisdom. She realized something profound. Humanity's greatest strength was not weapons, politics, or technology alone. It was presence, understanding, and the ability to unite where others divided. Kale embodied that strength, and the galaxy was beginning to notice. That evening, in private, Erevel asked Kale, "Do you ever feel burdened by this? All the expectations, the recognition?" Kale looked at her calmly. "Not really. I do what I can. That's all any of us can do. Recognition is only a reflection of results, not the reason for effort." Erevel nodded. "It's incredible, but humbling. To think humans were once dismissed, yet now, with guidance and care, we are shaping entire systems." Kale smiled faintly. "Humans survive because they think, adapt, and connect. Strength is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet, patient, and subtle. That is why we endure." Erevel thought of the predators, the anomaly, and the civilizations he had helped stabilize. Every challenge Kale faced, he had met with calm, observation, and a quiet wisdom. She realized that this was the essence of the HFY spirit: humanity's cleverness, courage, and unity could succeed where brute force or arrogance would fail. The crew of the Luminara celebrated quietly that night, not with loud cheers, but with a shared understanding that they had witnessed something extraordinary. Kale had led them, guided them, and inspired them not as a ruler, but as a human being fully aware of his place in the galaxy and his responsibility to others. Princess Erevel looked at him and finally understood the truth. The apprentice she had once overlooked was more than a helper. He was a bridge between species, a quiet force of harmony, and a symbol of humanity's potential. The galaxy was watching, and humans were no longer underestimated. As she gazed out into the stars, Erevel realized that this mission had changed her understanding forever. Humanity was not just surviving in the cosmos, they were influencing it, shaping it, and inspiring it in ways no one had expected. And Kale, the signal bearer, was at the heart of that change, guiding them all quietly, patiently, and brilliantly. The Luminara drifted gently through the calm star lanes of the Silverous Belt. After days of navigating anomalies, guiding fleets, and observing apex predators, the crew finally had a moment to breathe. Princess Erevel stood on the observation deck, her eyes tracing the swirl of stars and nebulae. But her thoughts were not on the vastness of space, they were on Kale. He moved among the crew as usual, quietly checking instruments, adjusting shields, and offering advice where needed. To the casual observer, he might have seemed like a diligent apprentice. But Erevel knew better. Every ship that followed them safely, every predator that stepped back, and every fleet that coordinated under his guidance was proof of his extraordinary presence. Erevel reflected on everything that had happened. The Silverous Belt had tested them in every imaginable way: dangerous creatures, deadly anomalies, and political tension between civilizations. Through it all, Kale had remained calm, observant, and confident. He had never sought recognition. Yet every being around him, from humans to alien species, recognized his influence. She remembered the moment the alien diplomats had arrived, treating him not as an apprentice but as a signal bearer. She remembered the apex predators retreating, obeying instinct yet somehow responding to him. And she remembered the fleets that had followed his guidance through the anomaly, surviving where others would have failed. "Kale," she said quietly, walking toward him in the garden dome. The plants glowed softly around them, and small creatures moved freely, drawn to his calm presence. "I need to ask, do you understand what you mean to everyone here?" Kale looked at her, his expression gentle. "I only do what I can. I do not seek to inspire, command, or lead. Presence, patience, and observation. That is all. Everything else is a reflection of what others bring with them." Erevel shook her head. "It's more than that. The predators, the fleets, the civilizations, they all respond to you. You've done something incredible, Kale. Humanity, your people, have potential that no one has ever imagined, and you're showing it." Kale smiled faintly, humble as ever, perhaps. But potential means little without understanding, without patience, without care. Humans endure because they notice patterns, adapt, and connect. That is what matters. That is what the galaxy responds to. Erevel realized she had underestimated him, not because he lacked talent, but because she had judged him by appearances. Quiet, unassuming humans like Kale were capable of extraordinary things precisely because their strength was subtle, thoughtful, and careful. The next day, the Luminara approached the largest asteroid cluster in the Silverous Belt, a region teeming with apex predators. Scientists had once thought humans could never safely navigate this area, let alone interact with its inhabitants. But Kale moved through the ship with calm authority, adjusting sensors, shields, and communication channels. The predators reacted instantly. They did not flee, nor did they attack. Instead, they shifted their positions, creating paths that allowed the Luminara to glide safely through. The crew watched in awe, unable to believe what they saw. Commander Valen muttered under his breath, "I have never seen anything like this." He's not commanding them, they just respond. Princess Erevel nodded. She understood now. Kale's presence was more than calmness or intelligence, it was recognition. The universe itself seemed to acknowledge his careful, observant, and thoughtful existence. Later, Erevel convened the crew for a debrief. The human members were quiet, unsure how to express their amazement, while the alien species exchanged impressed glances. Kale stood at the center, modest yet attentive, guiding the discussion with clarity and care. "Humanity has often been underestimated," Kale said simply. "We are not the strongest. We do not have the largest fleets, but we have adaptability, patience, and the ability to observe and understand. These are our greatest strengths." One of the crystalline diplomats leaned forward, their colors shimmering brighter than usual. "Kale is correct. Your species has survived against odds that older civilizations could not. You learn, adapt, and create harmony where others fail. And through signal bearers like Kale, the galaxy has a chance to see the best of your kind. Erevel felt a swell of pride. Humanity had always been underestimated, and yet here they were, recognized by species far older, wiser, and stronger. And Kale, quiet, observant, unassuming Kale, was the embodiment of that potential. That evening, Erevel joined Kale in the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly before them, a reminder of both the challenges and the opportunities ahead. Kale, she said softly, do you ever wonder why the galaxy responds to you this way? The predators, the fleets, the alien diplomats. It's as if the universe itself listens. Kale's eyes were calm, thoughtful. I do not command the universe, princess. I only notice patterns, respect life, and act carefully. The galaxy responds to awareness, not force, presence, not dominance. That is why humans endure and thrive. They learn to notice what others cannot. Erevel nodded, finally seeing the truth. Humans' greatest strength was subtle, quiet, and intelligent. It was not always visible at first glance, and it could be overlooked easily. But when observed closely, it was powerful enough to influence the universe itself. The apex predators, now at a safe distance, seemed almost to observe Kale from afar. Even they recognized his presence not in fear, not in submission, but in instinctive respect. And Erevel realized that this was symbolic. Humanity, underestimated for so long, was finally earning the galaxy's acknowledgement not through brute force, but through patience, intelligence, and harmony. Kale and Erevel walked through the garden dome, watching the small creatures interact with him. It was a quiet scene, yet it reflected the larger truth. Calm presence could inspire trust, cooperation, and even respect from beings of any size or power. I think I understand now, Erevel said. Humans can survive where others fail. Not because we dominate, not because we're loud, but because we notice, adapt, and connect. That is why even predators step back. That is why the galaxy listens. Kale smiled faintly. Exactly. Presence, observation, and care are stronger than brute power. Humans endure because we can harmonize with life, with nature, and with the universe itself. That is our gift. Erevel realized how much she had learned on this mission. Kale had taught her that strength came in many forms. Some civilizations relied on weapons, others on sheer size, and still others on politics. Humans relied on something quieter but ultimately more enduring: wisdom, patience, and presence. As the Luminara prepared to leave the Silverous Belt, Erevel stood beside Kale at the bridge, looking out at the stars. The apex predators remained at a respectful distance. The anomaly had been stabilized, and the fleets were now coordinated in ways they never had been before. Kale, she said softly, I used to think you were just an apprentice. I was wrong. You're extraordinary. Humanity is extraordinary. Kale shook his head gently. I'm only one human. The rest of your species has the same potential. It is not about me. It is about awareness, adaptability, and connection. That is what makes humans remarkable. Erevel smiled, finally seeing the truth. The galaxy had underestimated humans for too long, but no longer. With signal bearers like Kale, humanity had the chance to be recognized not for domination or power, but for intelligence, harmony, and quiet leadership. The ship moved forward, leaving the belt behind. The stars stretched endlessly before them. And Erevel realized that this was only the beginning. Humanity had a place in the galaxy, not because it demanded recognition, but because it had earned it through subtlety, cleverness, and the strength to adapt. And Kale, the apprentice she had once overlooked, was the living proof of that truth. For the first time, Princess Erevel understood fully why even apex predators, creatures that feared nothing, gave way when he walked. It was not fear, it was respect. The galaxy was watching, and humanity, led quietly by one extraordinary signal bearer, was ready to take its place among the stars.